Hello, California, and welcome to this week's edition of Your Financial Compass, the show dedicated to helping you successfully navigate to and through your retirement. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, and joining me in the studio, we have two members from Bulman Wealth Group, Chris Bulman, who is the founder, and financial advisor, Scott Villan. We've got a great show for you today. We're going to be talking all about the difference between financial planning and investment management. Are you working with a holistic financial planner or just someone who can handle your investments? We're going to dive deeply into what that means today. Chris, Scott, great to be with both of you, as always.
Yeah.
I never know what's going to come out of your mouths when we start these shows, right?
You didn't ask a question, so I'll take it from there.
There you
Chris
go.
said he was arguing, one of his sons is like a 40-year-old man trapped in a 14-year-old boy's body, Lukey. And he said, him and Chris were arguing over what the biggest number is. He said infinity, which that's what I thought, but Googleplex?
Well, that was when he was like 5 years old or something.
Oh, I thought that was like 5 days ago.
No. But I will tell you
Never
something
mind.
funny about this young Sheldon, my son. He, straight A student, of course, but when he was like 5, I think, 4 or 5, something like that, we're watching F1. This is what happens in every financial planner's household. As you're watching F1, he says, "Dad, when I grow up, I want to move to Monaco." I said, "What do you know about Monaco?" He said, "I know there's no taxes there."
Nice.
So let's just talk about that today.
Yeah.
Right?
Tax.
Oh,
How to
my
avoid
goodness.
taxes.
F1, Monaco, and taxes.
Offshore accounts, all that
Wow.
stuff.
Well, it's for all these reasons why I know you've had viewers who've called in, who come in to meet with you, and they're like, this is not your average financial show, but you like to have a lot of fun, and
do.
with that fun, present a lot of wealth and wisdom as well for folks.
Yeah.
So excited to be here with both of you. I look forward to this time each and every week, and we're going to be talking about the difference today between financial planning and investment management. And I think that this term financial planning often gets used, it gets thrown around, but it can mean different things to different people. So I would love to hear from your perspective on a basic level, what is financial planning and what is it not?
Yeah. So financial planning, I worked at a few firms early on in my career, and financial planning there was, Scott always says, this is not a financial plan, a group of statements. That is not your financial plan. That's just statements. Or they would draw some, some boxes and say, I'll have this much here, this much in income, this much growth in income, this much growth, this much aggressive growth, and you're fine. That is not a financial plan either. And so in its simplest form for us, what a financial plan is it's not simple. It is a plan that's going to take into account everything in your financial life, your rental incomes, if you have them, your pension, your salary, your expenses, inflation, taxes, growth rates, risk, portfolios, everything. And it all gets put together, and we analyze each of these things individually, and then we analyze them together, and we show you what your life looks like financially for the next 5, 10, 15, 20, 40 years.
Yep. So, I mean, it's a comprehensive thing, right? Because so much of the industry can say financial planning, but really it's just focusing on one piece of it, just those investments, just those statements.
You got it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm curious, Scott, when it comes to building a financial plan, I know that it's not just a set it and forget it approach at Bulman Wealth. It's not just something you do one time. Talk about that.
Well, actually, we just do it once.
I know that's not true.
So a financial plan is dynamic, just like life. And imagine things change over time because, say, Chris has used this example before. If we're going to drive across the country and say we're following, I use Google Maps as my GPS, uses Waze.
Okay.
You hit a traffic jam, an accident, weather, you're going to be weaving. Rerouting.
Yep.
And it's the same thing with a plan because things change, your tastes change. You might have different expenditures in your 60s than you would in your 80s, or a child's getting married, or you want to put a grandkid through school.
Or your health changes.
Or your
We
health
talked about
changes.
that too, right.
And the plan needs to change with it because, it has to, we want to update it at least once a year because things will change. And some years it's like, hey, everything's still on course. But all the time we're having clients come in and say, well, what about this? Or I don't want to work as long as I thought. Or this wedding's going to be more expensive than I thought. So it's a living, breathing thing, as I always say, and we need to treat it that way and make sure. Well, there's a financial behavior book. I forgot who wrote the book, but I really do enjoy it. He said, the thing you can count on is you can plan that your plan won't go according to plan. And that's why we have to always edit it and change it as our life changes.
Right.
Yeah, and just real quick, I would say you're going to want to do a plan with somebody who does plans all the time,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
I grew up sort of going camping with my family and things. We went on a camping trip over a holiday weekend recently. And my idea of camping is I know you have to have a tent, you know, and for me, you have to have some mattresses too, and pillows, but that's about the extent of what I know. If you're in Tahoe, you go to the lake, but we went camping with some of the, you know, my kids and their friends and their dads and moms. Some of these guys, Jeremy, Nick, Adam, these guys know how to camp. And so it was like games all day. You could play bocce ball in a forest, I didn't know this, in Tahoe. And it is amazing, so much fun.
Where is this headed, Chris?
Bucket golf. You can do all these different things. The point is, that was a different experience than had I gone camping just by myself with my family.
Right.
They would have been bored to tears because I just know, you know, s'mores, tent, and mattress. There's all kinds of other things you can do. And in a financial plan, all you know is what you know.
Yes.
We do financial plans every day, every week, every month, and we're going to bring a lot more to the table.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I've done once with my family and won't do again?
Camping.
That's right.
Camping. You strike me as more of a glamper, is that right?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Absolutely.
And there's no shame in that, absolutely
That's
not.
right.
Well, you know, it's interesting, you were talking about the GPS analogy, and to that point, you have to know where you're starting from, and then you also have to know where you're going. That's the only way you can develop a solid plan. And I think some people, because they may not be sure, they think, oh, I'm just going to wing it because I'm not really sure. I don't want to have a plan. But again, we know it's going to change. We know that adjustments have to be made, but you can't make those adjustments without having that solid plan in place. So I know that you're really passionate about providing your clients at Bulman Wealth Group with a solid plan that's comprehensive. Talk a little bit about your process and what goes into it.
The process starts with a conversation. We have to get to know you, get to know what your goals are, what kind of things are you looking for. I always say we want to find out what keeps you up at night worried, and we want to find out what gets you up in the morning excited, and then start to build towards this. How do we acknowledge those? And putting all the pieces together, as Chris said a few minutes ago, because once we can do that, that's the beginning of the plan. But it all starts with a conversation. If this is you at home, maybe you've never done a plan, you're afraid, where do I start? I've got all these pieces, I don't know how they fit together. That's where you can call the number below. And we start with a conversation to see if we can add value to that situation, or we can answer those questions, or see when should I take Social Security? Am I too aggressive in my investments? Or where tax is going to play a factor, or how much should I consider them? So call the number below, schedule a time, and we can begin to create that financial compass for your situation.
Wonderful. Scott, Chris, thank you. You know, it just struck me as you were just sharing that, Scott. Again, it is so much more than just investments. You have to know where your income's going to come from. You have to know the tax implications. You have to plan for these things, your health care, your legacy planning. This is what it means to have a comprehensive, holistic financial plan, and that is what the team of Bulman Wealth would love to be able to put together for you. So to claim your financial compass review, all you need to do is call that number on the bottom of your screen, 888-970-4685. Or if you'd rather connect online, we've got you covered. If you simply pull out your smartphone, you can open up that camera app, just point, click, and scan the QR code that you see there down in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. That will take you over to a landing page, ask you a few short, simple questions, and then a member of the team from Bulman Wealth Group will reach out to connect with you to schedule your complimentary meeting that way as well. We have a lot more to discuss on today's show. Stay with us. We'll be back right after this.
Successful retirement to me is someone who doesn't have to worry about where their next paycheck's going to come from, where the income's going to come from. Are they going to run out of income? Are they going to run out of money? Are they going to meet their financial goals with respect to maybe they want to leave money to their children, maybe they want to leave money to a philanthropy or a university? Solving all those issues is what a secure retirement looks like.
Being able to wake up and know the day is an open slate and not having to worry about things. Or say someone's going on a trip with family, they're going to the beach, and if the headline says, the market's down again or something, they're not concerned. Bulman Wealth has my back here. We've got a plan in place. My portfolio is set up in a way that concern is not there. The plan and finances should not be the concern once they get to that stage of working with us and entering into retirement.
Welcome back. You're watching Your Financial Compass, brought to you by the team of Bulman Wealth Group. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, here with both Chris Bulman and Scott Vallon, and today we are talking all about comprehensive, holistic financial planning and how that is so different from just focusing on investment management, which so much of our industry only focuses on. I want to go back. You were sharing before the break the 5 different areas that the financial compass process, trademarked process, goes into. Let's dive into each one of these areas in a little more depth, shall we?
Yeah, Apple, Amazon, Google.
Enron, Radio Shack, all
No.
the hits.
Yeah, so there's 5 core areas that we focus on. Asset management, which is managing all these stocks and accounts that you developed over the years. That's vitally important. And I would say that's the one of the 5 that most places you go, that's all they focus
Right.
on. They're not going to ask you all these other questions. The second one is income planning. It doesn't matter for a lot of us what all of these investments are if we don't know how to get income, or if we don't know if it's going to be enough income or too much. So income planning is vitally important. That's number 2. Then we have tax planning. Tax planning is important for all of us. Do we know how much, are we investing in the right way to get the right tax deferral, the most tax efficiency? Are we taking it out in the most tax efficient manner? All those types of things.
You didn't have to answer all 5.
Legacy planning.
Well, we're doing an overview and then we'll go back through and stuff,
No,
right?
can we just pan away from...
They really do love each other, in case you're wondering. They
But
work
if you
great
judge, can we
together.
go back to the 2-shot? If you judge by brain size, look how much bigger my head is. So I'm just saying. So legacy
laughing in
planning
the
was
control
4,
room.
Can we start the
Continue.
show over?
and healthcare planning. So those are the 5.
All right, so those are the 5. Good overview. Let's drill down a little more deeply. So obviously you all do engage in investment management. Talk about the piece of everything that goes into that piece of the financial plan.
Well, I think Chris hit on that enough. But so with income planning, that you think about it every year. You've seen this a million times. When they ask people, retired people, what is your biggest fear in retirement? The answer 99.9% of the time is what?
I'm afraid I'm going to run out of money.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, it's the most important thing that we do is how do we map and put all these pieces together to make sure that's not the case. And income planning is how do all these pieces fit together, from maybe you have a pension, Social Security, if you have rental income, inheritance, as Chris mentioned, the different investments, how do they all fit together? But you also have to factor in inflation.
Yes.
Inflation's been the hot topic for a couple of years, but it's always been there. I always say, what do they say in the health realm, that the blood pressure is the silent killer?
Yes.
I would argue that in the financial realm, that's inflation, is a silent killer. We've always factored into our plans
The cost of cheeseburgers.
that as well. They're $18. He railed on a former show about these expensive cheeseburgers. He's mad. He's got 4 boys that eat a lot of them.
But
a lot
even
of
just
money.
recently, gasoline's up 54%.
Car insurance is up 27%.
Yep.
In 2022, coffee, which I love, was up 27. It just was
And if you're in
mind-
California and own a home, homeowners insurance is through
Yeah.
the roof.
Yeah.
Yeah. So all of these things affect our income plan.
Correct. We have to factor them all in.
Well, because the cost of living doubles that much more quickly. So now for retirees, based on where inflation has been, your cost of living could easily double 2 or 3 times over the course of your retirement. The point is, you need to have an income plan that is planning ahead for that and accounting for inflation. Because that is why it makes sense why most people's fear is running out of money in retirement.
Yeah, and I heard one person say one time, if you're on a fixed income, you're on a track to being fixed broke. I mean, it's because if your income doesn't rise, but all of your expenses and costs keep rising, we're in big trouble.
Yeah, for sure. Well, moving on, Chris, I know this is one of the topics you get so fired up about. We all do at this desk, taxes and engaging in strategic tax planning. Talk about what goes into that piece.
Well, tax planning it's key, whether you're a high income earner or whether you're you hope to be a high income earner. It's important to understand how to pay your taxes now, but it's also important to understand how to invest in the most tax efficient strategies. And the different ways to do that would be through Roth IRAs, traditional IRAs, insurance
Roth
investments,
401ks.
Roth 401ks. And what we need to understand is what kind of a tax bracket are we in today? What kind of a tax bracket do we think we'll be in the future? We don't know what the number is, but we can maybe guess what bracket it's in. Those brackets will get more expensive. Taxes are on sale now, so should we be investing in Roth 401ks and IRAs? Should we be converting our IRAs to Roth? Those are all conversations that they're actually popular without us even bringing it up to folks.
Yeah.
People come in and want to know what they should be doing with those traditional IRAs and 401ks. Should we be converting or investing in Roth?
Right. I just heard yesterday the statistic that there's actually $39.9 trillion currently sitting in all these tax deferred accounts.
Yeah.
Oh my
the
gosh.
government knows that. They want to get their piece of the pie. And so, the point is, if you don't have a tax plan for yourself, guess what? The government has
do.
one, and you are going to end up potentially paying more in taxes than you are legally required to pay, because there are strategies that you can enact for folks to help them lower that potential tax bill in retirement.
Yeah, and not only that, but when we look at legacy planning and tax, they all work together, right?
Yes, for sure.
If we look at legacy planning, let's say that you've amassed a few $1 million in your IRAs and you're taking out your RMDs, But then when you and your spouse pass away, now maybe you have one child or two, they're going to inherit that. They're hopefully earning, if you earned a lot of money, generally your children are doing well too. Maybe they're at high income. In the old days, they called it a stretch IRA. You can take that IRA and stretch it out to your kids, their kids, their kids.
Right,
Can't
over
do
the
that.
lifetime.
You can't do that anymore.
Right.
They have to completely deplete, and a lot of people don't know this, completely deplete those inherited IRAs within 10 years.
Yes.
So here I am, if I inherit a $2 or $3 million IRA, now
During
I have to
your
take,
highest earning years.
during my highest earnings years, now I have to take another, I mean, a bad problem, right? But I have to take another $200,000 to $300,000 a year for the next 10 years at the highest tax bracket.
Yep.
And as good as it seems that you might inherit that money and get that kind of income, that's a lot of money you're just paying in taxes. So if we kind of rewind back, like we were saying before, in your 50s or 60s, how can we get rid of that tax bomb to begin with?
Right.
And that's through effective tax planning with your investments.
Absolutely. And so much of the industry doesn't even focus on tax planning. We've had entire shows where we've talked about why that is. But I love that you guys are very passionate about doing that, because it's a huge piece. In retirement, it's not about what you have, it's about how much you get to keep that makes the difference. And taxes are one of the single biggest detriments to someone's wealth, or of eroding your wealth in retirement.
Yeah, and I just want to say, to our listeners out there, you could be sitting in a position right now where maybe you have $500,000, you have $1 million, you have 1.5 million, and your concern, especially in California, across the country, that's a great retirement. In California, you're still a bit worried. So maybe you're worried about, am I going to have enough? But we also have listeners that are sitting on a $10 million Lake Tahoe property that they're going to inherit. They have that maybe they don't want, or they have to sell because they have siblings they don't get along with, and they're going to inherit millions and whatever it might be. Or maybe you've built a company and you're worth 10 or 20 or 30 million. Wherever it is, wherever you fit in, we can help. And I want to make sure that people understand that. You're not, if you only have 500,000, that's enough to talk to us.
Yeah.
If you have 25 million, that's enough to talk to us, and we can help.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, real quickly as we finish out this segment, so we've really gone in depth of 3 of the 5 worlds. Just briefly, can you touch on healthcare, and then a little bit more on legacy planning?
Yeah, so quickly with the healthcare, say we're at age 65 is an important age because of Medicare. That's when you start Medicare and have to start planning on, how much is that going to cost? How much is that going to take out of certain, Social Security amounts, what have you. So understanding the different Medicare supplements. But another thing too to be realized with healthcare is, what if you retire at 62? Well, you have a 3-year window where you need private coverage. So a lot of times we need to go try to help folks find, or we use resources to find private coverage if you're not able to bring that through a workplace or pension. So healthcare planning and long-term care, which we could do a whole show on, is part of that. But the other thing to touch on is legacy planning, which is a dramatic term. Chris touched on kind of the inheritance aspect, but if you're in California, which you probably are watching this, if you have a house and if you own a house and don't have a trust, you need a trust yesterday. That is such an important thing, and that's an area that we can talk about. And again, all these different things we can talk about. Like you said, there's 5 areas of the financial compass. If any of them are a concern, maybe all 5 of them are, or maybe one of them is, it's a reason to call. We can call the number below, and we can set up a time to talk and see how we can hopefully add some guidance.
Absolutely. Well, Scott, Chris, thank you so much. To our viewers at home, we know that a lot of this can feel very overwhelming, and some of it might be new to you. The good news is you don't have to go it alone. It's not new to Chris and Scott and the team of Bulman Wealth Group, and they would love to be able to help and serve you. So again, for no cost, no charge, no obligation, the invitation is for you to call and receive your very own financial compass review. To claim yours, simply call that number on the bottom of your screen, 888-970-4685, or again, you're also welcome to scan that QR code, and that will get you connected as well. We'll be back with more right after this.
As a good saver, you've been putting away money during your working years. Studies find that the biggest fear of retirees is running out of money. Market volatility isn't just the downward movement of stock prices, it's the size and frequency of change. The more dramatic the ups and downs, the higher the volatility. This can put savers who are newly retired or a few years away from being retired at greater risk. Today's generation of retirees is not receiving traditional pensions as our parents or grandparents did. Instead, we have retirement accounts such as 401ks or 403bs. These accounts typically expose your money to market risk. The last thing you want right before retirement is to lose a portion of the money you need for income. But how do you turn these accounts into a retirement income? Is it safe to keep all your retirement money sitting in the stock market? The last thing you want is to lose a portion of the money you need for income due to market loss. By working with a financial professional, you can learn how to turn a portion of your savings into an income stream for life and income for the life of your spouse if you're married. We all have moments in our lives when we wish we had taken action sooner. Don't let procrastination reign on your retirement parade. Act now before it's too late. Please call our office to set up your no-cost, no-obligation retirement income review today.
Welcome back to Your Financial Compass, brought to you by the team of Bulman Wealth Group. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, here with both Chris Bulman and Scott Milan. We've been talking today all about the 5 points of the financial compass, what goes into building a comprehensive, holistic financial plan for you. I want to go back to something you mentioned in the last segment, Scott. You were talking about, especially for folks in California, how essential it is, if you own a home, you need to have a trust. Expand on that.
Yeah, so there's a dreaded word that starts with a P. It's called probate. And some of you watching might have dealt with it with a family member. But let's have a hypothetical. If someone owns a home in California and they pass away, so they have 2 kids, and the husband and wife are both passed, if the house is not owned within a trust, the house is going to probate, probate court. And that doesn't happen overnight. That takes at least 12 to 18 months on average, plus all the expenses, legal costs, and the kids are like, what have you left us with? So A, it helps tidy that up. Another thing that trust does is make sure maybe you have a blended family, or maybe there's grandkids in the picture and you want to leave different percentages to different people, or you don't want people getting all of your assets at the moment you pass. Just had this discussion here recently with the client. You can set it up within the trust to dictate at what percentage and when.
Yeah,
Correct.
Your wishes, how you want them
That's
carried
right.
out.
And there's also healthcare provisions within it. It really, if we think of like financial planning as a pyramid, it is the base, is the trust. We're not here anymore. How do we want to make sure our wishes are still compensated?
And also, while you're living, if, for example, if you had a stroke, or and you want to still be able to communicate your wishes, that can be done through a trust while you're still healthy and have the right mindset.
Absolutely. So many important reasons to protect your assets. And really, it's protecting your family, too, and those that you love. And I know that estate planning, we've had entire shows on that. It's never necessarily the most fun thing to think about, but it's critical and essential, and it's by far one of the most loving things that you can do for those you leave behind. Well, as we've talked a lot today about this comprehensive, holistic financial planning process, I'm curious, any stories come to mind of folks who've walked through this, that you've helped them navigate through these 5 points?
Yeah, I mean, I could tell so many. I can remember a time when, 20-something years ago, when I worked as a stockbroker financial advisor at a big bank. And I remember this couple came in already in they're probably 55, 60, and they had about $400,000 in their savings account. And that was their entire net worth. They just kept putting money in savings. And I talked to them about the difference of savings and investing, and they'd never heard this before. So, but if we rewinded the clock and they had just added that money to a brokerage account over the years, it would have been worth millions and millions instead of $400,000. And so it's important, I always say, if you're going to dig a plot in your backyard, to plant a garden. If you don't plant anything, guess what? Something still grows. It's just not what you wanted. If you want tomatoes, plant tomatoes. If you want, whatever it is, plant what you want. Yes, do you like radishes?
I don't. I figured you did, though.
I do actually like radishes. Anyway.
The point is, you don't want weeds, right?
That's the crux of it.
Yes.
Are radishes a weed? It kind of seems like a root weed.
I'm unaware of my vegetable lingo, I guess.
Yes, that's out of the level of expertise here.
Sorry.
But the
plant
point
what
is,
you want. If you want radishes, plant radishes.
Wrong show.
If you want,
Martha Stewart's on later.
If you want a multi-million-dollar portfolio, work with someone who can help you grow that. And I would say also a financial plan. It can be as detailed as you want. So I'll give you an example of a family came in, 2 daughters. They've got nice big 401ks, IRAs. They're investing, but they're people come in and I say, how much are you investing? They say, oh, pretty good, 5%. So by the end of the year, they're investing, I don't know, $5,000, $10,000 in their 401k. And I said, do you know that you can put up to $23,500 or $30,500 if you're over 50? Oh, I didn't know that. Should I raise my percentage? Well, yes, if you can, right?
Yep.
But you have 2 girls at home. Can you afford to raise it, or can you afford to still, pay for food? And so that's where a financial plan becomes so important, because now we're looking at, what is the budget? How much are we spending on food, travel, home, school, sports. It isn't always just for 60-year-olds.
Yep.
Now we have 2 girls. Sometimes parents of daughters pay for the wedding. How much do you want to pay for a wedding?
Right.
We're going to set a limit $50,000. Okay, let's pick a year we think they might get married. So we throw that in 10 years out, 12 years out. Now we have 2 big $50,000 expenses. That's today. So we add some inflation, 3-4%. Maybe it's $62,000 by then. And so now they can see for the next 30 years what their life looks like. Big chunks coming out for college.
Yeah.
$52,000, $62,000 coming out for a wedding. 2 years later, another wedding.
Yep.
And then, where does that leave them when they're 65, 70? This is what a financial plan does for you. It paints a financial picture of the rest of your life.
Right. And I love that it helps folks see what they can do. It's not about being constrictive and saying what you can't do.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, we need to plan for these things so that when they do happen, it doesn't upset the apple cart and you can be confident that you're still going to have enough money to last you for the rest
It
of your
just
life.
adds clarity, and it
Right.
removes the mystery of, because so many people have the fear, and that's why they're afraid to do the plan.
Right.
Because they're afraid of what they might find out. But a lot of times, just as many, we find out some good things too. Like a lot of times running plans, like you can spend more money.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hello.
That's the best, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's the best when you
Yeah.
run a plan and people get to 92 and it says they're going to have $88 million. And I'm like, do you need $88 million?
Right.
Or would you rather have some fun along the way?
Right.
Yes.
We can have fun. We didn't know that. How do we
Right.
do that?
Yeah.
Do you want a boat? Do you want, what do you want?
Right.
And then we see them start to enjoy their lives and
Yeah.
build more memories, build more of a memory 401k
And
with their
the
family.
plan can give them we kind of bestow upon them, spend more, mom, spend more.
permission, right,
Yeah,
to do
so
that,
it's
yeah.
the permission to do it.
Right. Well, real quick, I know we're running to the end of the show, but you have a team. Obviously, people get to see you on TV, but talk briefly about where you're located and the
Yeah,
rest of the
so we've
team.
got multiple locations. We're in Roseville in the Sacramento area. We have an office down in Southern California in Temecula. There's plans of potentially, I don't want to say too much, of other offices, but
We
we've
have
got
offices in the
clients.
Bay Area.
Yeah, we have clients all around the country. That's the beauty of Zoom. So
Right.
if you have a friend or your parents are out in Pennsylvania, we need to talk to them, we certainly can.
Yeah.
And that's why we love technology.
Well, wonderful. Chris, Scott, thank you both so much. And thank you for joining us. Again, that number to call to start your complimentary financial compass review, 888-970-4685. Be safe, be happy, be blessed. We look forward to being back with you next time here on Your Financial Compass.